Hello, and welcome to this video tutorial about adding a new lab and updating lab profiles in Sesame. Users register during their first access to Sesame. Every user is by default assigned to the World Virtual Lab. The World Lab is the part of Sesame that is visible to all registered users, or in other words, the Virtual World Lab and the data in it are public. A virtual lab may represent a center, facility, research laboratory, or research project, and may consist of one or many members. Any user can create multiple labs or be a member of labs created by others. Sesame users may only work in one lab at a time. To switch between labs, go to Options, change Default Lab, and choose the lab from the drop-down choice list. More details are explained in the Changing Default Lab video. In a typical scenario, a principal investigator, or a PI, initiates a Sesame lab by designating a member of their laboratory to be the lab master. This lab master then creates the virtual lab. A given PI may have multiple virtual labs with separate or overlapping membership. To create a new lab, go to Options, select New Lab, and then type in the name for your lab. Lab names cannot be more than 16 characters, and names may not be duplicates, so if you pick a name that is already registered, you will see an error message. My first choice, Phoebe's lab, has already been taken. I'll run through this again now, and this time I'll name my lab First Lab. When a new lab is created, it will become the default lab for the user who created it. The default lab, or the lab you are currently working in, is shown here in the root node of the search results tree. Objects attributed to a given lab are visible to all lab members, but only to them. Lab data are not visible to the world or to other labs. When a new lab is created, the lab profile is opened in the board and it may be updated. If you wish to update the lab profile at a later point, go to the main application and under Options scroll to Lab Resources, and then in the sub-menu select Lab Profile. The lab profile shows who is the lab master of the current lab, the username, full name, and additional information. The lab master manages the membership of the lab and controls lab resources. The lab master also maintains the lab profile. The definition of the fields in the lab profile are available on our help pages. I'll fill in some details starting with the field Full Lab Name. My new lab is named National Magnetic Resonance Facility at Madison, and I'll fill in my URL. Note, some of the fields here are not editable. For example, the lab name, the lab master name, and lab master info. Make sure that the time zone is set correctly. To change the time zone, go to the Lab Profile menu and click Set Local Time Zone. The time zone for your lab will be set to the time zone of your local computer. If the time zone is incorrect, change the time zone of your local computer and then repeat this step. To save your profile changes, go to Lab Profile in the menu bar and select Update Lab Profile. The next step for setting up a Sesame lab is to define the lab resources. The lab resources are only modifiable by the lab master. However, by using the Can Do resource, the lab master may delegate the maintenance of individual lab resources to specific lab members. A video tutorial about using the Can Do resource is available on our website. In a typical scenario, the members of a PI's physical lab and the PI's collaborators are asked to register as Sesame users. The lab master then invites these persons, who can be located anywhere in the world, to join the Sesame lab. Thus, a virtual Sesame lab can reflect the personnel in a real physical lab or project. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and please refer to our help pages on the Sesame website for next steps in setting up your lab and for any further questions.